Wendy, are you seriously wearing that? Didn't you have anything more appropriate for a party? It was my mother who said this. She wore a white lace high-neck dress, composed like a refined observer rather than the mother of the bride. Yeah, this was just the easiest to move around in, I replied. My father, standing beside her, let out a sigh. You've really never changed, have you? You could have dressed more femininely. This is Janet's big day, after all. The least you could do is try to bring some charm to the occasion. Dad, Wendy doesn't have any charm. Don't waste your expectations, my sister Janet interjected. It was her wedding today. And on this day when she was the star, I was little more than an afterthought. Dressed like a model straight out of a bridal magazine, she glanced at me with that measuring look, a polished smile and perfect silhouette in place. The luxury hotel banquet room overlooking the San Francisco Bay glittered with chandeliers suspended from the high ceiling. The whole scene felt more like a dream than reality. So that company of yours, Quantum something, it's still around? I thought you were just dabbling in some hobby app project. Wait, really? I always figured it was just some small-time startup. Her fiancé Steve chimed in with a casual laugh. There was no real malice in his voice, but it carried the unmistakable tone of someone speaking from above. Steve, a graduate of an elite university and now a partner at a prestigious law firm, was the kind of man who unconsciously judged people based on credentials and prestige. That same gaze now treated my work as little more than an overgrown hobby, as if a person's worth could be determined solely by what was visible on the surface. I met his gaze for a second, then looked away and reached for my glass. Yeah, well, we're still running, I replied briefly, tilting my glass slightly. The bubbles shimmered as they rose, and when I drank, it felt like the chill inside me eased ever so slightly. In truth, Quantum Solutions held multiple international patents in AI development and had partnerships with several Fortune 500 companies. But I didn't say any of that. Even if I did, they wouldn't really believe it, or worse, they'd twist it to fit their version of reality. By the way, Wendy, did you come alone? No plus one? My mother asked, fishing for something. No, I came by myself. Honestly, that's what happens when all you do is work. You need to find a partner like Janet did, and plan your life more intentionally, my father said, nodding in agreement. I kept my smile intact and traced the rim of my glass with my finger. Still, Steve and Janet really are the perfect match. Law and marketing, a power duo. Unlike some plain engineers, my mother added. Janet jumped in immediately. Totally. Family background matters too, you know. Steve's parents are well known in the industry. His father is now the chairman of Meridian Technologies. Chairman George Thompson, right? He's attending today, isn't he? Yes, he's on a whole other level compared to your quantum whatever. Layer upon layer of barbed remarks. I let out a slow breath. Not even a dry chuckle came out. I simply let myself float in the airless space around me. And yet, strangely, deep inside, I felt calm. It wasn't anger or frustration that I felt, just a kind of quiet detachment, as if something inside me had cleared. Because I didn't live my life to impress them. What I've built with conviction and craft, not image and ego, doesn't waver just because someone fails to see its value. In fact, it was this calmness itself that proved everything I had poured my time and energy into. It was my confidence. Wendy's always been so stubborn, Janet muttered nearby. All I did was ask for a bit of marketing help, and she turned me down, saying she's swamped with other clients. You'd think she could help her own family out a little. I kept tracing the rim of my glass and said nothing. Nothing I said would reach them right now anyway. And that's precisely why I kept smiling in silence, because I knew a value they would never understand, one that lived quietly but undeniably inside me. Smiling faintly, I glanced down at my phone. A message had come in from my assistant, Tiffany. Chairman Thompson will be arriving shortly. Are you ready to greet him? I closed the message and rose from my seat. I walked toward the private room at the back of the banquet hall, then paused and turned around. Looking back at the people who had just introduced me to the world as the lesser sister, I couldn't help but think how laughable their ignorance would soon prove to be. "Hey Wendy, where are you going?" Janet called out behind me, the hem of her dress swaying. "Oh, just a quick chat with someone important." When I said that, Janet's face twisted. "Wait, who? Don't tell me you're still talking about business today." "No, it's a personal matter. With someone who's about to become family." With that, I opened the door to the private lounge and headed toward the lobby. And just as I arrived, Chairman Thompson stepped through the entrance. "Nice to meet you, Ms. Baker. It's an honor." George Thompson, chairman of Meridian Technologies and Janet's father-in-law. Currently, one of the most influential business leaders in Silicon Valley. "The pleasure is mine. I didn't expect to meet you here, of all places at my sister's wedding. Feels like fate." "Oh, not at all. I should be the one humbled. To think someone like you is part of my sons-in-law family, it caught me completely off guard. When I first heard that the CEO of Quantum Solutions was your sister, I honestly couldn't believe it." I nodded gently, smiling. "I get that a lot. I've never been one for the spotlight. I'm not really the public face type. Even so, that hardly explains it. Your company's AI diagnostic system is now a core component of our supply chain optimization project. That's no small feat." "You're too kind. Actually, I was hoping for a chance to speak with you in person about that project." As our conversation progressed, the small tension I'd been carrying started to ease, slowly replaced by certainty and a quiet confidence. Just then, Steve and Janet came rushing in with my parents. "Father, it's almost time." "Wait, Wendy?" Janet froze the moment she saw me. "What are you doing here?" "Just stopped by to say hello. We had a few things to talk about." "Wait, hang on. You two know each other?" "Janet, your sister is the founder of Quantum Solutions, the company we're currently considering for a tech partnership. She's the CEO." At her father-in-law's words, Janet's expression froze instantly. "Wait, no, you're kidding. Her? That plain?" "Plain or not, her company is the provider of the essential technology that your company's IoT strategy depends on. It's worth knowing who she is. In fact, meeting her today is a stroke of luck for us." "Hold on, Quantum. That's the one featured in that industry journal?" Janet's voice wavered ever so slightly. She tried to maintain composure, but the confusion and panic in her eyes gave her away. The confidence, the superiority she had worn so boldly just minutes earlier gone without a trace. The perfect bride she had played so flawlessly was now unraveling at the unexpected truth of her own sister's identity. The tension in the room was thick. Next to her, Steve looked equally stunned, staring at me as if trying to process a completely new reality. "Wait, are you really? Is that you?" His voice trembled with disbelief, laced with a hint of urgency. Gone was the cocky tone, now replaced with genuine confusion and a flicker of regret. "Dad, did you know about Wendy?" "Of course. Your fiancé's sister is the founder of Quantum Solutions, the company you personally reviewed during the legal due diligence. She's the one at the top of the partnership." "What?" A few seconds of silence. Then Steve's expression slowly shifted. "Wait, the WB. On that contract, that was you?" "That's right, Wendy Baker, CEO of Quantum Solutions." "No way, I can't believe this." He straightened his posture and, for the first time, addressed me with the respect I'd never seen from him before. My sincerest apologies. Please forgive my earlier disrespect. I should have introduced myself properly. In that instant, the entire atmosphere changed. Janet's face turned pale, her eyes darting nervously. "Father, could I speak with you for a moment?" "Not now, Janet," George replied sharply, turning back to me. "Now then, Ms. Baker. I'd very much like to move forward with formalizing our partnership. Your company's technology is critical to our next-generation product line. I'd also like to schedule regular CEO meetings going forward, if possible. Of course, I believe any strategic partnership should be built on mutual respect. That's exactly the kind of leadership I admire." Janet and Steve stood nearby in stunned silence, as though they'd suddenly found themselves in an entirely different world. "So you've known this whole time? That you're a CEO?" Janet finally spoke, her voice strained. "Would you have believed me if I had said it? Besides, I never thought it was something I needed to flaunt. We're family. I assumed I'd be seen for who I am, not just what title I hold." She stared at me for a long moment, not saying a word. It wasn't just shock, it was as if she couldn't fully process what she was seeing. Then her eyes began to drift, and she closed her mouth. She looked like she wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. They just sank back into her chest, like courage that had turned to ash. In that silence, something inside me shifted clearly and completely. In the past, I would have shrunk away in moments like this, swallowed my voice to keep the peace, endured it all in silence just to avoid conflict. But not anymore. For the first time, I stood here on my own terms, speaking with my own voice. And I realized that all this time, what truly hurt me wasn't their rejection, it was my own silence. That realization had taken root in me now, firm and unshakable. And there was no more reason to hold back. "There's something I want to say." I turned slowly to face her. "Do you remember who co-signed your MBA loan?" That was. Janet's eyes flickered in panic. Steve tilted his head, stepping in for Janet, who remained silent. "Wendy was your guarantor?" "Yes, $50,000. You said you'd pay it back someday." "Are you serious?" "I am. I have it in writing. But I never intended to collect. You were family. But..." I turned to look Janet directly in the eyes. "Even so, you laughed at me. Called me your boring little sister. A nobody tech girl. You built your career with the money I lent you, through a lavish wedding, and still, I was treated like the lowest-ranking guest in the room. Wendy, that's not." "Not what? You're going to tell me it's not true?" She couldn't answer. Not a word. Our parents, as always, simply stood by, listening in silence. "Mom, Dad, you too. You always praised Janet for being charming and perfect, and laughed at me for being gloomy and awkward. No matter how hard I worked, no matter what I achieved, not once did you praise me." My mother winced and muttered as if trying to excuse herself. "That's not what we meant, Wendy. It's just, you never really talked to us. And that gives you a reason to ignore me?" My voice dropped a level low and sharp. I felt the breath catch in everyone's throat. I didn't say anything because I knew it wouldn't matter. "You would have just told me to stop working so much and go find a husband, right?" I wasn't going to stop. I used to try so hard to gain your approval. But today, I finally understand I don't need it anymore. If someone is going to see me for who I am, it's not going to be any of you." A long, heavy silence followed. It rang in everyone's ears. "Wendy." Janet finally opened her mouth. Her voice was barely audible. I didn't forget about the 50,000. As long as I felt like I had the upper hand, I thought I didn't need to thank you. I knew I owed you an apology, but I was scared. Scared of what? Scared of admitting I was the lesser one. Like if I said thank you, the image I'd built up, the perfect daughter, would start to crumble. I softened my gaze slightly. Then start now. Pay it back, not the money, the trust. Start by admitting your weakness. Janet closed her eyes and exhaled deeply. I will, I promise. I'll make it right. I turned and walked away. From behind me, I heard George's voice carry through the air. Janet, from now on, I want you to recognize your sister's capabilities. I, for one, am proud to have someone like her in the family. That single sentence sealed it all. I gave a slight bow and returned to the private room. The wedding continued without incident. Guests enjoyed the fine cuisine and champagne, laughed at the newlywed couple's love story, and wept during the heartfelt letters to their parents. On the surface, it was a perfect ceremony. But in quiet moments, I caught fleeting cracks in Janet's smile. The way her hand trembled slightly when lifting her glass, the tension behind her poised expression every time she locked eyes with a guest. The usual air of superiority was gone. For the first time, she had truly faced her little sister. And I could feel it, that encounter had begun to shift something deep within her. A few weeks after the wedding, on a quiet weekday afternoon, I sat in a conference room at the headquarters of Meridian Technologies, located in the heart of downtown San Francisco. Through the tall glass windows, a pale mist blurred the sky and view of the bay, and the breeze weaving through the buildings seemed to gently diffuse the room's tension. I set a sleek, tablet-style case with the Quantum Solutions logo onto the table and sank into my chair with quiet confidence. Gone was the hesitant presence I once carried. Seated across from me was George Thompson, the composed chairman of Meridian Technologies and Janet's father-in-law. Beside him were Steve, visibly tense, and Janet, her posture low and withdrawn. A few members from the marketing team flipped through printed materials quietly, their expressions strained as the weight of the moment settled into the room. This meeting was supposed to mark the first step in our formal tech partnership. But plans had changed. This was now a damage control meeting, responding to a situation that had already escalated beyond initial projections. George no longer looked composed, his face showed fatigue and frustration. Steve appeared pale, and Janet looked as if she had shrunk into her seat. Several members of the marketing team sat in silence, holding their documents as the heavy atmosphere weighed on the room. Let's go over this again, George began, his voice far sharper than usual. This quarter, we suffered an estimated $7 million in missed opportunities. Because we failed to secure a timely partnership with Quantum Solutions, Apex Systems beat us to it. A weighted silence spread across the room. Janet, your department was responsible for evaluating Quantum's tech. How do you explain a 6-month delay in negotiations? Janet's voice quivered as she replied. We believed it would take more time to verify the technical feasibility. Also, there were concerns about the company's size and reliability, so we thought it required cautious consideration. Concerns? George's tone sharpened again. You wrote in your assessment that Quantum was an unreliable small startup. And yet the company holds multiple international patents and has partnerships with several Fortune 500 firms. Care to explain that now? I didn't know. I should have done more thorough research. More thorough research? Are you telling me you failed to conduct proper due diligence on your own sister's company? At that moment, the air in the conference room froze. All eyes from the marketing team turned toward Janet. Father, that's. As a result, our next generation product line is now delayed by 6 months, and we've lost critical market share to competitors. I will have to address this in the upcoming shareholder meeting. He picked up a document and continued. What's even more concerning is that, due to our failure to close the deal, Apex Systems has now secured an exclusive contract with Quantum Solutions. That means we won't be able to access their technology until at least the second half of next year. The projected revenue loss? Over $15 million, and that's a conservative estimate. Steve spoke up. Dad, I was the one reviewing the contract on the legal side, and I still didn't connect the WB signature to Wendy. I share some of the responsibility here. In your case, I understand how the signature alone might not have been enough to go on. But Janet's situation is different. She allowed personal bias to cloud her judgment about her own sister's company. Until then, I had been quietly listening. But now, I finally spoke. Excuse me, just so we're clear, are you confirming that my company currently holds an exclusive contract with Apex Systems? That's correct. They made a very aggressive offer, and the contract was signed last month. I took a moment to think, then said, understood. In that case, I'd like to make a proposal. George leaned forward. What kind of proposal? While the contract with Apex Systems is exclusive, there is one loophole, not through tech partnership, but through acquisition. Acquisition? Yes. If Quantum Solutions were to spin off its technology division into a separate company, that entity could be acquired by Meridian Technologies without violating the Apex agreement. George's eyes lit up. That would be possible? It would. But there is one condition. What kind of condition? I turned my gaze to Janet. The head of the marketing department must be replaced. After what's happened, I can't in good faith collaborate with a team incapable of proper market or tech assessment. It's too great a risk. Janet turned pale. Wendy, please. This is business, Janet. It's not about feelings. It's about results and competence. George slowly nodded. It's a fair condition. Janet, you will step down as head of marketing and return to a general staff position. Please, Father, give me another chance. You had your chance. This is the result of not using it. I rose from my seat. In that case, I'll prepare a detailed proposal by next week. The acquisition price will reflect Meridian's projected losses, but I'll ensure it remains fair. Thank you, Wendy. Thanks to you, it looks like we've avoided the worst-case scenario. Afterward, I walked the team through the benefits of the new proposal and the conditions for the transfer of technology. Then I quietly closed my tablet, zipped up my bag, and stood. At the end, George stood as well and extended his hand. That was an impressive negotiation, Wendy. I look forward to working with you. Likewise. I gave a small nod and turned toward the exit. Just as I stepped outside the meeting room, I heard my sister call out from behind me. Wendy, wait. I turned. She was standing now, looking straight at me. What can I do to earn your trust again? I paused for a moment, then answered. It's not too late. Stand on your own 2 feet. Earn that trust with your own name the way I did. Then I walked away, calm and steady. I was no longer living in anyone's shadow, not even my family's. This partnership wasn't just a business move. It was proof that I had claimed my place, on my own terms. A few weeks later, after the partnership agreement was officially signed, I found myself sipping tea on the terrace of my penthouse apartment in the early morning light of San Francisco. A rare moment of quiet amid the whirlwind of days. My inbox held a message from Meridian Technologies, a confirmation of the implementation timeline, and a personal thank you from George. I replied, closed my laptop, and took a deep breath. For the first time, it truly felt like a chapter had closed. Then the doorbell rang. The monitor showed 3 unexpected visitors: my mother, my father, and Janet. I felt an old roughness rise in my chest for just a second, but I breathed it away and opened the door. "This is unexpected. What brings you here? Sorry for showing up out of the blue. But may we talk?" My mother's voice carried an unfamiliar weight, softer, lower. I nodded and let them in. We sat in the living room. My father was the first to speak. "Wendy, we came to apologize. I know it's far too late, but I wanted to say it anyway." "Apologize?" "I always looked down on you. I praised Janet for being the bright, outgoing one and dismissed your efforts. But this whole ordeal made me realize how shallow I've been." I said nothing, simply sipped my tea. My mother continued. "Ever since you were little, I believed girls should be sweet and charming. I clung to that idea and ended up forcing it on you. I kept praising Janet and ignored how much pressure I was putting on you. Well, at least you're admitting it now. That's something." I answered plainly. I wanted the truth to be heard more than any kind of sugar-coated sympathy. Then Janet spoke softly. "I was jealous." I looked up. She was staring straight at me. "I was jealous. I always thought I was the better one. I had the attention, the validation from our family, from society. But now I finally see you worked harder. You built everything yourself. You didn't rely on image, you relied on substance." I didn't say anything. She went on. "Wendy, I want to stop pretending to be perfect. I want to stand on my own like you. I know it'll take time, but..." I looked into her eyes for a moment. Then I smiled faintly. "Standing on your own? It's a lot harder than it looks." "I know, but I still want to change." "Then I'll support you. Not as your little sister, but as another human being." Her eyes welled up, and she nodded several times. "But don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean I've forgiven the past, the humiliation at that wedding, the years of being overlooked. Those things shaped who I am. But I'm done living for your approval." I stood, my voice steady. "From now on, I'll live a life I chose for myself proudly. I finally understand that I don't need to match your values to have value." Neither of our parents could respond. After seeing them off, I stepped back onto the terrace and looked up at the sky. For the first time in my life, I felt what true freedom meant. My phone buzzed. It's a message from Tiffany. Regarding the European expansion, Paris has made their move. They want this to proceed under direct CEO supervision. I typed my reply. Okay, time to show the world what I can do. Closing my eyes, I listened to the wind. This life, I chose it. And I would walk it, unapologetically, from this moment on.